Welcome back to the Saturday Scholars College Football Podcast. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. That is Zan. I am Shoob, and today we are here to do Week 8 picks. Let's go. Another great week of college football. Once again, we got some ranked matchups on deck. We have a very important G5 matchup to pick as well, and then a few other key critical Power 5 matchups to go at it today. Another great week as usual on deck. We are Gonzo list today, but he sent his picks, so we are going to go and mention his along here. Zan, are we ready?
Let's get it, Shoob. Let's dive right into it.
All right. Well, let's start off with Big Noon Kickoff. We're going right for the heavyweights right off the bat. The two Goliaths in the Big Ten East. Well, there's three Goliaths actually, but two of them are playing each other. Finally, by the way, it's about time these teams are finally playing one another in the Big Ten. Penn State, number 7 versus number 3, Ohio State. Two undefeated teams, of course. This one, obviously, absolutely critical in the race for the Big Ten championship game. Ohio State is a 4.5-point favorite in the shoe.
Being at home is huge here for Ohio State. And look, Drew Allar has had his hits and misses this season. He hasn't played a defense to the level of Ohio State yet. This is a really big environment for his first through full season as a starter. I think it's kind of a tough spot for him. Penn State has a great defense. I think this will be a lower scoring affair, but I'm going to take Ohio State to win and to get the points. I like Ohio State to maybe win this like 17-10 kind of game or like 20-13, pretty low scoring.
Gonzo is going to go with Penn State to win this game. He has Penn State outright on the road and, of course, covering the spread. So right off the bat, we have a disagreement here in the teams who we have going, picking. He has Penn State. Zan is Ohio State both ways. Well, give me a trimmer because I have some hedges to trim, man. I have some hedges to trim in my yard. And listen, hey, all right, fair. But to be fair, I haven't done a whole lot of this so far this year, but I actually think it's legitimately warranted here. That 4.5-point line, Penn State's a pretty good team, man. But like you said, I don't really trust the offense just yet. I don't know if I can really trust Drew Allar. He hasn't gone into a whole lot of hostile environments. They've played a lot of poor teams in recent weeks, and they have been annihilating them, to be fair. But this is like a really big, like, okay, Drew Allar, like put up or shut up type of game. And I still do think he is going to perform, but is he good enough to perform to overcome Ohio State in the horseshoe? That's where I'm like, all right, I don't know if Drew Allar is that guy just yet. But if he does, then prove me wrong, man. I'll be pleasantly surprised because I have a Penn State 7-1 ticket to win the Big Ten that I'd like to cash. So I would like to be wrong about this, but I'm going to go with Ohio State to win. And I will go Penn State plus the 4.5 points because I do legitimately agree with you that it's going to be a low-scoring game. And in those low-scoring games between two elite teams, I think Penn State can keep it within 4. And I wouldn't be shocked at all if that's what the final score is, between 1 to 4 points of margin. So give me Ohio State in a very close game at home. All right. Washington State versus Oregon. Now, this one's lost a whole lot of steam since Washington State has really gone down the toilet the last 2 weeks. Rest in peace, Cam Mort-Heisman. They are now a 20-point underdog on the road at number 9, Oregon. Oregon is reeling off that heartbreaking loss to Washington, which was an absolutely phenomenal game. We talked a lot about that on the Week 7 recap, which we highly recommend you go and listen to or watch if you haven't already. But Oregon's 20-point favorite at home is a big bounce back in store for the Ducks.
Yes. Oregon is at home. They're coming off a crushing loss in the way that they lost that game. But they are still a fantastic, fantastic team. And you know who else is coming off a crushing loss? Washington State. Then you got to go play Oregon in Autzen. So this is a matter of, can Washington State get it together and figure things out? Because ultimately, Oregon looks good on both sides of the ball. Washington State, I just don't know what we're going to get with them. And so I'm obviously taking Oregon to win this game. Home field, better team, and probably the better quarterback, quite honestly. And I really think Oregon knows that their bid for the Pac-12 championship game is still alive. to get the revenge on Washington. That's got to be a motivating factor because they were arguably better in that game. Had they kicked field goals in certain situations, they win that game. I know win expectancy says Washington, but for my test, Oregon seems like the slightly better side in that game. But that's why I think they're going to come out in this game versus Washington State, and they're going to have no mercy. I think they're going to want to prove a point here. And I think Oregon covers the 20.
There's not a lot of mercy to give because that's a big 20-point spread. And I originally saw this and was like, oh, I'm going to take Washington State to cover there. But, the more I thought about it, I don't know what happened, but somebody pulled the plug. Somebody pulled the cord out on Washington State's offense the last couple of weeks. And I don't know if that cord's going to get plugged back in against Oregon at Austin. That's tough. And like you mentioned, there's a lot of uncertainty going into this game, which makes picking the spread really tough. But by no means, Oregon's going to win this game outright. And though I'm a little hesitant about it, I am also going to lay the 20 points with Oregon. I think that Dan Lanning is the type of coach that can get his team off the mat and sort of regroup from a loss like that they took last week and get them motivated to really take it to an inferior team this week at home, which I think they'll do. And Gonzo agrees with us. Gonzo's going with Oregon to win outright and covering that 20 points. So give us all the Ducks by 3 tutties. Next game, ranked matchup, Tennessee versus Alabama. Get the cigars ready. Number 17, Tennessee, going to Bryant-Denny to face number 11, Alabama, who is a 9.5-point favorite at home. Zan, this was like one of the games of the year last season.
It was a great game last year. And look, Tennessee's going into this game 5-1, significantly not as good as they were last year, but that's Alabama's not as good as they were last year too. But I will say Alabama's defense has looked pretty dang good, like an impenetrable fortress. But you know what, man? Like conventional wisdom would tell you that this is going to be a close game based on like just the quality, because we know Tennessee has a good defense as well, and Milroe is kind of hit and miss. You don't know what you're going to get with him. I just kind of have this gut feeling, man, that Alabama's going to walk away with this one, and it's going to be more than 10 points. So I'm taking Alabama and the points.
Gonzo is in agreement with you. He's going Alabama outright and to cover that 9.5-point spread. So I think Alabama will win this game, and they will get their revenge. This is a huge revenge game, and I think this is a classic like Nick Saban revenge game spot for him and his team. They played kind of poorly last week against Arkansas, and you just kind of think by default they're going to play better at home against Tennessee. They might have been looking ahead to this game for all we know. And I remember you said this last week or the week before. You said it via text that you, for some reason, you just really liked Alabama on the spread this week, and I agree with you. But then I sat down and thought about it. And then I was like, actually, I kind of think Tennessee can hang in there because these are two defensive teams, and I think this is going to be a low-scoring game. Defenses, the strength of both of these teams, absolutely the opposite of what they were last year. This is going to be a low-scoring game, and between low-scoring games amongst pretty good teams, I'm inclined to hedge a little bit. So give me my trimmer because I'm cutting the shrubs down a little bit more, baby. Give me Tennessee plus 9.5 on the spread. I will disagree with you guys there, but I do think Alabama will win this game. And, it's about time we picked Alabama because I feel like we've been picking against Alabama like this entire season. And we were right about Texas.
This is when Tennessee wins. This is when Tennessee wins.
Oh, man, that would be something else. That would be something else, man.
Hey, that's where the hedge strat would work, though.
That is true. But, yeah, I can't see Tennessee winning, man, but I think they're going to cover. But I guess that could be a little bit of a contradiction there. We'll see. Next game up on the docket, Oklahoma State versus West Virginia. Who would have thought we'd be picking this game a few weeks ago? Well, all of a sudden, these two teams are both 4-1. They only have one loss in conference play. And, hey, these two teams now, the winner of this game is going to be 3-1 in Big 12 play. It's kind of a semi-relevant game in the Big 12 race. The winner of this game is going to be in decent shape, and they're still going to be, they're still going to have their flag up in the Big 12 championship race until further notice. So what do you think here? West Virginia is a 3-point favorite in Morgantown.
I believe they're both 4-2. But man, Oklahoma State, I thought they're dead in the water. Vast improvement. Historically speaking, outside of last year, which really Oklahoma State should have won. It was just an extremely rainy game, and there were some extremely bad calls made by the staff and execution and whatnot. I still contend they probably should have won that game. And if that were the case, Oklahoma State beats West Virginia almost every time they see them. And I don't think that's going to change. I think Oklahoma State is going to win this game. I know they're going to Morgantown, and the forecast is rain for this game yet again. But it looks like Oklahoma State has actually started using their beast running back, Ollie Gordon, who had like over 100 yards rushing, over 100 yards receiving. So even if it is rainy and like tumultuous conditions, they've got a guy they can give the ball to and keep moving the ball. So I'll put my faith in that. And hats off to West Virginia, though. They have played much better this year. But then again, they beat Pitt. We've seen what Pitt looks like. Who have they really beaten? You know, I think it's more of a product. It may be more of a product of West Virginia playing some teams who are more down than we anticipated they would be. But we'll see, man. We'll see. I think Oklahoma State should win this game. I think Oklahoma State is the better side, but we will see. Home field does matter.
And they did beat TCU and Texas Tech, which, those two teams have been down, granted, but those wins could look a lot better by the end of the year. We'll see. But yeah, I kind of agree with you there. I think West Virginia definitely is the beneficiary of catching those teams at early in the season, maybe at the right time. We'll see how it plays out. But there's no doubt in our minds that West Virginia is way better than they were last year. Do I even mention what happened last Thursday? Do I even mention it? I don't think West Virginia fans want to hear about it. So we won't mention that, but we all know what happened.
We mentioned it earlier in the pod on part 1. So if you want to go relive that, you can go listen to that, but we won't torture you.
Yeah, we won't have to talk about that. But what we will talk about is how Gonzo is not going to pick your team. He's going to pick Oklahoma State. So, yeah, I'm going to give a double whammy there to the Mountaineers. Gonzo's agreeing with you, man. He's got Oklahoma State on the road outright.
He's got some team draft in this. He's got Oklahoma State, so he kind of needs them to win. He can't pick against them.
Gonzo's doubling down here with the Pokes. Well, let me ask you this. I think the two best players in this game are the running backs, right?
Yeah, Donaldson and Gordon. Yeah.
Donaldson and Gordon. I think running backs wise, this would be a fun game to watch if you like running back play.
And it's heavy rain forecast, so it's going to be a lot of running.
It's going to be a low-scoring game. I expect a lot of ground attack from both teams, but you know what, man? I think the Pokes run comes to their little mini run here, comes to an end. I'm going to take West Virginia, so I'm going to go against one of my favorite teams, but I will obviously be rooting against my pick here. Yeah, I think West Virginia can sort of bounce back here. I think this is one of those, straightening of the rope types of games. I think Oklahoma State, they had 2 crazy wins against ranked teams. West Virginia coming off a heartbreaking loss to Houston. I see a little bit of a bounce back here, a little straightening of the rope from the Nears, but we shall see. I think either way, it's expected to be a close game. Speaking of more close games, this one is expected to be really close, at least according to Vegas.
Basically a PK. It's -1.
I was hoping it'd be a PK. We still haven't gotten a PK yet to pick this year. It's just fun being able to type out that little PK thing there.
I mean, -1 is basically a PK.
It is. It is. Toledo is -1 at Miami of Ohio. And the reason this game is big is because Toledo is 3-0 undefeated in MAC play in the West. Miami of Ohio is 3-0 undefeated in MAC play in the East.
Could be a rematch.
This could be a MAC championship game rematch here in December, though I will say the Ohio Bobcats probably have something to say about that. But for now, it's a pretty big game.
The Ohio Bobcats took an L, so we'll see.
We'll see. How do you see this one playing out, though? Miami of Ohio is at home. They have that Power 5 win over Cincy that we talked about. Can they do it against Toledo?
Well, the sports makers or the odds books, the fact that they favor Toledo.
I don't know how you could butcher that name twice in a row. The odds books and the sports makers.
Hey, put that on a shirt. Yeah, the odds books and sports makers. But anyway, the fact that they have Toledo favored by -1 tells me what they probably favor Toledo by 3 or 4 points on a neutral.
Roughly.
So
yeah.
I would say Toledo is probably the better side here, and I like Daquan Finn, so I'm going to go with Toledo. And by nature of being -1, it's going to be Toledo both ways.
Gonzo is in agreement with you. He's going to take Toledo to win and, of course, cover. Well, 2 games in a row here. I'm disagreeing with you guys. Give me the Fighting Ben Roethlisbergers of Miami of Ohio, the Red Hawks. I don't really have a strong rhyme or reason for this game. I just kind of think that Miami of Ohio at home can be the slightly better team. I would actually have Miami of Ohio power rated by a point or two in this game, according to the Shoob model. And for that sheer reason, I'm going to take Miami of Ohio. I think it'll be more of a low scoring game. Of course, Daquan Finn is the best player for both these teams, the quarterback for Toledo, but I still think Miami of Ohio's defense, which is a little solid, I think they can get it done. By the way, Gabbert is Miami of Ohio's quarterback. I'm pretty sure he's Blaine Gabbert's little brother, right?
Yes,
I'm like 95% sure.
he
Yeah,
is.
he is. Yeah. So, little interesting tidbit there. But yeah, give me a Miami of Ohio. All right, TCU versus Kansas State back into the Big 12. These are 2 unranked teams, but it is 2 teams that rematched or will be rematching in what was the Big 12 championship game last year. Yeah, I know it seems like an eternity ago, but these 2 teams played each other for the Big 12 championship game last year, and TCU made the national championship game, in case you guys forget. I know it seems like crazy after what's happened this year, but Kansas State is a 7.5-point favorite at home. What do you see happening here? I think both of these teams, just the Big 12 in general, outside of OU and Texas, has just been like complete chaos. So I
I
don't think
think
we're
these
doing
two
ourselves any
teams.
favors by picking these teams.
That's true. I think these two teams, one, Big 12 is a measure of chaos. It's a little bit unpredictable. And these two teams are definitely going to want a measure of revenge against one another. Um, I think this is going to be a hard fought game. I think Kansas State will win it. They are at home. But I do think, and this is where I think it's going to be a closer game, I think TCU is going to come in here and cover that spread. So give me Kansas State to win and TCU to cover. This will be a very hard fought game.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you there. I'm going to take Kansas State to win. I'm going to take TCU to cover. And it is baiting us to take TCU when you're giving us those +7 points and a hook there. That is very favorable to take TCU's side of the spread. And Gonzo is going to agree with us. So with 3 ways across the board here, we're going to have Kansas State winning and TCU covering on the road. Yeah, I think I kind of mentioned this on the recap pod. I think we are sort of like at a mini buy low point for both of these teams. I think both these teams are a little bit better than what they have showed so far this year. And this will be an opportunity for one of them to prove that point. So interesting game here. Maybe one of these teams can sort of get back into the hunt in the Big 12 championship race, but pretty unlikely. This game is probably not going to be competitive, but we're picking it because the slate was a little dry. Or it wasn't dry. There was not a lot of depth this week. I'll put it that way. There's a lot of good games this week, but after like the 7th or 8th game, there's not a lot of depth in terms of games to pick. So I said, screw it. Let's throw Michigan State on here. It's a rivalry. I think we all know who's winning, but the spread is what's interesting here. Michigan is a 24.5-point favorite at Michigan State.
So I'm going to pick the team for Michigan to win this game.
I wonder who that is.
Michigan. Yeah, of course I'm picking Michigan. And I'm picking Michigan to cover. 24 and a half. I'm actually kind of shocked. I think the only reason that it's not higher is because it is a rivalry game. Michigan State usually comes to play in this game, despite the years, but I just don't see it being close, man. I can easily see this being like just as you mentioned earlier in part 1 of this pod. I can easily see this as like a Michigan State early on, and you're like, oh God, Michigan State's up 10-0. And then all of a sudden the final score is 52-10. Like
Yeah.
like legitimately, and I don't expect it to be close. I think Michigan will win this easily, and they will be going for burgers by the 4th quarter.
I like that. Yeah, Gonzo is unsurprisingly in agreement. Michigan both ways, laying the 24.5 points. Well, I'm going to go with the shocker upset here. No, I'm kidding. Michigan. Michigan wins this game, no doubt about it. The spread is somewhat interesting to me because I do kind of agree with you. I think 24.5 does seem slightly off given how just badly Michigan is beating teams this year. I will say, though, in Michigan State's defense, they have been a popular sharp betting team the last few weeks because I think a lot of people believe that this team is the perception of how bad they are is not reality, i.e., they did lose Mel Tucker, that whole scandal, yada, yada. They're not a good team, but they're probably just a little bit better than people probably think they are. And let's be honest, for three
Covered
quarters
last
against
week.
Rutgers, they were the better team. They just didn't finish. And I think Michigan State, it probably is a little bit better than what they are showing, or at least what the casual fan would probably perceive them to be. But like, let's be real here. This is going to be a Michigan cover either way. Like 4 touchdowns, give it to me. If Michigan State covers, I'll be pleasantly surprised for them. Good for them if they do. Duke versus Florida State. Man, oh man, this one is critical in the ACC championship race. Both of these teams are undefeated in conference play. Duke is ranked number 16. They were able to beat NC State with just sheer will and defense last week without Riley Leonard. This week, they're going into Tallahassee. They're going into Doak. Riley Leonard is questionable for this game, which makes this one very difficult to pick, which is why we have a little bit of a quirk here with our spread pick in this one. But the Noles are a 14-point favorite as of today going into this game, and they are at home. What do you see happening here?
This is one, I was reaching out. I was like, I don't think we should pick this one just because we don't know about Riley Leonard's status. And that's a huge thing in this game because Duke is a good team even without Riley Leonard. But to beat a team like FSU, you need all of your bullets in the chamber. And I don't think even with Riley Leonard, they would beat FSU, especially in Tallahassee. So I'm going to pick the Noles to win this game. But if Riley Leonard is there, I think they can easily keep it within 14 points. But if Riley Leonard is out, I'm definitely taking the Noles on the 14. And I don't think it'll be a high scoring game. I just don't think Duke will be able to score very many points against FSU. I think without Riley Leonard, it's probably like a 27-10 kind of game in favor of FSU. With him, it's probably inside a touchdown. So I like the Noles. And so with a little asterisk, I'm going to take the Noles both ways, assuming Riley Leonard is out. But since we're not betting real money on this, I do want to note that if Riley Leonard plays, I've got Duke on that spread.
You're telling me you don't believe in Sir Henry Balin IV?
Look, I know he was a great king of England and all, but I don't know about his ability to throw the football. He had 4 completions last week, so
If Florida State loses at home, it's not going to happen. Probably won't happen. But if Florida State loses at home to a guy who, should have probably been like the king of Scotland in the 16th century,
he plays cricket, mate.
then that would be pretty embarrassing. But I think we all know Florida State's probably going to win this game, especially with Riley Leonard being questionable. And even honestly, even if Riley Leonard does end up playing, like, do you think he's going to be 100% fully ready? I doubt it. I'm going to tell you here, I'm going to go Florida State to win this game outright. And I'm also going to take that FSU minus 14 without Leonard, Duke plus 14 with Leonard, because even with Leonard, or even without Leonard, I should say, I still do think Duke's defense can surely keep them in this game. But yeah, they're not going to be able to put up a lot of points. And even if Riley Leonard does play, I still do think they're going to struggle to keep up with Florida State. So yeah, I really like Florida State in this one. I think they've been gearing up for this game the last few weeks. Florida State's kind of had a soft schedule since they played Clemson. But yeah, I think good times are rolling in at FSU, and Gonzo is going to take Florida State outright as well. And I gave him the option to take our little side deal here with the Leonard spread, but he says, screw it. He's going Florida State minus 14 regardless. So
I like the balls.
yeah, regardless of who plays, Gonzo's going Florida State minus 14. So I respect that. All right, 2 more games to pick here. Utah versus USC. This one could be any more of a contrast in like styles of teams. And this was a game last year where we saw these two teams play twice last year, and this was quite entertaining. And USC is definitely not the one that found it entertaining. Put it that way. When these two teams played last year, Utah robbed them of a Pac-12 championship and a playoff spot. So does USC have a chip on their shoulder after taking a special teams beatdown to Notre Dame last week? And can they get off the mat? They're a 5-point favorite at home in the Coliseum versus Utah.
So I think yes. I have USC winning this game, and that's mainly because one, they're at home, and I know it's not a huge home field advantage. They can fill maybe 70% of their stadium, which is better than a lot, maybe half the Pac-12 schools. Outside, the top half can fill them, the bottom half not so much. But they're one of the teams in California that fills actually maybe like 70% of their stadium. The other Cali teams no. But Utah concerns, man. Quarterback. I mean, the quarterback play has just been so inconsistent. And are you telling me Caleb Williams is going to go throw 3 interceptions in back-to-back weeks? Hell no. There's no way Caleb Williams plays that bad in back-to-back weeks. He never has. And he's back with some home cooking. I just don't think so. I think USC was humbled a little bit last week. I think they're going to come ready to play for this game. I'm taking USC and I'm laying the points at -5.
I like it. I'm with you here. And I originally was thinking about picking Utah, and I decided not to. And then I was thinking, oh, I'm still going to pick Utah spread. But honestly, I'm kind of with you, man. I'm kind of with you. Like, there's just no way USC plays that bad 2 weeks in a row. I see a bounce back performance here. And don't get me wrong, Utah is a great team. Like they're going to be the best defense USC has seen all year. They have the 4th most efficient defense in the country right now, but as you mentioned, Utah's offense is just not good. It's just not. And I know
When you
USC's
play Caleb
defense is
Williams,
not
you
good.
kind of need an offense. So
See, what's funny is on one side of the ball in this game, when you have USC's offense versus Utah's defense, you have like 2 top 5 units in the like going at it. And then on the other side of the ball, when you have Utah's offense versus USC's defense, you have like 2 like mediocre Power 5 units going at it. So very big contrast in talent and skill on either side of the ball here. But yeah, I just don't think Utah's offense can score enough points. Like, even though they can move the ball against USC's defense, they're just not explosive enough. Like, they're not going to be able to take advantage of USC's poor defense. And yeah, I'm going to take Caleb Williams to still get it done against Utah, even though Utah will give him his hands full. Like, he will have his hands full against Utah. Don't get me wrong, but with you, man. Bounce back performance from the Trojans. And you know what? They don't have a conference loss. They still are 4-0 in Pac-12 play because Notre Dame's obviously not a Pac-12 opponent. So they're still just fine in terms of Pac-12. And as far as Gonzo's picks, he's going with Utah. He's going with the Utes.
I like it.
So he's going off of historical precedent, man. I mean, Utah's had USC's number. They had their number big time last year. So I totally respect it. But we'll see. I'll be very interested to see in the outcome in this one. All right, last game here for week 8 picks. We have Clemson versus Miami. And this is not a ranked matchup, man. These are 2 unranked teams. Probably have underachieved a little bit relative to what both teams think they should normally accomplish in a given year. Clemson, Miami. It's at Miami. It's at Hard Rock, but Clemson's a 2.5-point favorite. Man, the winner of this game, I think, still maybe has an outside chance to backdoor their way to the ACC championship game if things fall their way. But like, the loser is done. The loser in this game is like done in the ACC championship. And this would be the 3rd loss for either one of these 2 teams that loses. So regardless of what happens, someone's getting 3 losses after this. What do you think's going to go?
It's going to be interesting, man, because Miami doesn't have like a true home field advantage. That's the thing about playing in an NFL stadium for Miami. But Clemson has they've improved, but they're not what we're used to seeing from Clemson football teams. I think Miami gets it done. I think Miami takes out Clemson. I think Miami wins this game.
Interesting. Yeah, I think Miami has played a lot better than what they showed in their 2 losses. I think I'll put it that way. I mean, obviously they shouldn't have lost to Georgia Tech. Like, that was just coaching malpractice. But even though I do think Miami is a little bit better than what people may think, I still am going to go with Clemson here. I think Clemson is just this is more just a gut feeling, man. I think Clemson just very quietly been kind of like that little snake slithered in the grass. Like, everyone's kind of forgot about them because they had 2 early losses. Everyone's writing them off. But like, it's still like a power, even though they're not ranked, they're still like a power rated, like top 15 team. And I think they're going to get it done here at Hard Rock. There's going to be a lot of Clemson fans in the stadium too. We know they're going to travel for this one. So I think they're going to get it done, but wouldn't be surprised either way in this one. And Gonzo is actually going to agree with me here. So Gonzo's going to tail me with Clemson. So I like it, man. This week we've had a fair amount of disagreement between the 3 of us in some of these games, especially outright winners, which is good for the sake of a little bit of difference of opinion between the three of us. So always nice. Should be another interesting week. Last week, I forgot to mention this. Last week, we had a pretty good week, man. I'll throw it up on the graphic if you're watching
We
on
all went
YouTube.
positive on
Yeah,
both sides. So
nine
really
and
good
ones.
spread and outright.
Gonzo went 9-1 last week, 7-2-1 against the spread. We all went 7-2-1 against the spread, and then you and me went 7-3 outright.
I think it's
So
funny we all went 7-2-1 against the spread, but with hitting different and losing different bets.
it's the nature of the beast, man. But that's what makes it great. And on the season, you and Gonzo are positive. Gonzo is up plus 4.9 units, which is pretty good so far this point in the year. You're up plus 2.8 units. He only has that one game advantage on you on the spread. I am still reeling pretty hard with my spread record, but last week helped,
You're going to have like 2 amazing weeks in a row to be able to recuperate that.
which is pretty unlikely if we're going to be honest. But hey, we'll see. But yeah, at least I took a big bite out of the cookie last week. That'll help. But yeah, I'd say overall to have 2 out of 3 of us positive at this point in the season when we're just like pretty much spraying the board here 50-50 with hypothetical bets against the spread. Like if you're normally betting with your own money, you're like strategically picking and choosing games that you think are off. You're not just spraying whatever games you want to spray for the sake of doing it. So when you think of it from that perspective, I think it's pretty impressive that you two are positive against the spread so far this year. And yeah, I think pretty consistent from what our results were last year. So got to give a little pat on the back to ourselves there. But anyways, thank you all for watching. Thank you all for listening. Hopefully another great week of college football on deck. This is the Saturday Scholars for Zan, Shoob, and Gonzo signing out. See y'all later. Enjoy your college football Saturday.